Need for Speed, a racing game franchise with over 20 entries in its catalogue, born in 1994. It's featured more cars than I can count, and barely a sentence of a cohesive story between them, so naturally, somebody made a film. Not based on a specific game, just the idea of Need for Speed. It makes sense in a way. The film came out in 2014, right when Fast and Furious was 6 films deep. At this point those films have stopped pretending physics mattered, somewhere around Tokyo Drift, but they're still big, stupid and fun. They're almost kind of like live action video games. So, it must have seemed like a good idea to bring in some competition for those films and take a slice of the pie in the form of Need for Speed. It had been doing street racing video games for 20 years after all, time to cash in on that chaos. What could go wrong? Well, it turns out quite a lot. Let's just say the end result is, well, it's something. Aaron Paul, fresh up Breaking Bad at the time, plays Toby. He's part of the underground racing scene. He builds cars, he drives fast, he stares moodily into the distance. Quite a lot. Early on we see Toby going into a street race with Dino, who's played by Dominic Cooper. The race is essentially a grudge match to see who is a better driver. It was supposed to be just the two of them, but Toby's best friend Pete invites himself along for the ride. They race, but when Dino feels like he might lose, he tries to cheat and causes a fatal accident, which kills Pete. Toby then takes the fall for Dino, because Dino's raced off into the distance and completely disappears to save his own skin. Fast forward 2 years and Toby gets out, and for some reason decides the best way to prove his innocence and avenge Pete's death is to drive across the country to enter an illegal race known as a De Leon. Because, why not? Helping him on his redemption arc are a bunch of side characters, most of whom only exist as pad out their runtime, I think. Julia, played by Imogen Poots, she supplies the car in awkward flotation. Finn and Beastie are tech guys and mechanics, except they really don't do anything. And then there's Benny, who spends the entire film flying overhead in helicopters and planes, and at one point a stolen military-grade Apache. Why is he spending all this time there like he does? Nobody knows. The film doesn't explain it, he's just up there shouting directions like a sat-nav. The De Leon race itself is hosted by Monarch. He's some kind of street racing DJ philosopher hybrid. He's played by Michael Keaton. He has no scenes with the rest of the cast, he just screams into the webcams like an unhinged podcaster who lost the plot a while ago. And that's kind of it. There are a few cop chases along the way, but they feel more like obligations than set pieces. The rest of the film is pretty much by the numbers though. No surprises, no revelations. Just a film by the numbers. Even the big finale, the De Leon, it doesn't have much spectacle. Sure, there's some elements of danger. Cars racing, cops chasing, Toby giving us his all, Dino looking worried, friends cheering him on from wherever they find themselves, Monarch narrating from his cave, but it all kind of just happens, and then it's over. Considering it was going up against Fast and Furious, it's all quite tame really. Well, there's one ridiculous bit where Benny hooks Picard to a helicopter mid-chase, but that's sort of a thing Fast and Furious uses as a warm-up, and it's on a short piece. To be fair, the driving sequences themselves are decent. They use real cars and practical stunts instead of droning everything in CGI, and you can tell, it looks good. It just doesn't mean anything, you can't hang an entire film on, well, the stunts are real. Not when the rest of it is this hollow anyways. The acting? Yeah, but no. Aaron Paul looks like he regrets signing the contract in real time for the most part. Imogen Poots, also known as Julia, delivers some lines so awkward you'll feel a second-hand embarrassment creeping through your spine.
So you think just because I make a living buying cars designed to triple the speed limit, and because I drive a Maserati, and by the way, I'm an awesome driver, that you have the right to condescend me?
And Benny, well, I think he's in some kind of denial. Benny spends most of his time in the film insisting he's Maverick.
Call me Maverick, or I will kamikaze this into your nutsack.
Which is funny because according to internet lore, the franchise got its name from that line in Top Gun.
I feel the need for speed. Ow!
And in this movie, the one literally called Need for Speed, not one person says it. Not anyone racing, not the DJ, not even the guy naming himself Maverick. A film called Need for Speed. Nobody says it. It's almost impressive. What's strange is how disconnected this thing is from the games, which makes it hard to compare the video game to the film. Beyond the name, there isn't really a lot to connect them. It seems like the idea is half-formed. Even though the games are light on story, they do have a pretty common theme that runs through them. It's almost always a nuker on the block making his name from the bottom up. That in itself would have been enough. Some of the games even let you take on the role of a cop as well for some cops and robbers style action. We could have had the story from a cop side as well for some balance and some connection to the games, but we don't. There's no Easter eggs, no nods to any of the events in a game, no character name crossover, no location crossover, nothing. The closest we got to an acknowledgement of the film and the games was some DLC for the Need for Speed Rivals game, which was released around the same time. That took the form of some cars from the film. The 2015 reboot that followed this film actually had a live action story built into it. They could have tied it in that way, used this movie to bridge into that tone, made it make some kind of sense, but nope. All we got was a couple of cars to drive, that's it. Going back a few years before the film, one of the earlier games, Need for Speed The Run, had a story kind of similar to the film, but even that doesn't get a nod. In fact, one of the best references to this being a video game film is a pretty deep cut. The name of the finale race, the De Leon, is named after Victor De Leon III, or Little Poison as you're more likely to hear him called. He's known for holding the Guinness Book of World Records youngest ever professional gamer award. But not for Need for Speed, he's not known for playing that on any level, he was a Halo player. In all honesty, this film didn't need to be called Need for Speed. It could have been released under any other name to be contended to try and knock Fast and Furious off its perch. And yeah, it feels a little unfair to compare the two franchises, but it's hard not to do so when there isn't a lot of other films trying to do this kind of thing. Again, to be fair, and to complete the circle, there hasn't been a decent Fast and Furious game either, so I don't know. Maybe the two should sit down and compare notes at some point, or it stays of each other's way. Need for Speed works as a game because it doesn't try to be more than it is. The film does. It wants to be Fast and Furious, but with brains, and forgets what makes any of it fun. You don't need a complicated story, you just need a reason to race. Watch Fast and Furious for the cars, play Need for Speed for the cars. This, honestly, skip it. You're not missing anything, not even the speed. And that was kind of the point, wasn't it? Anyways, I've been Paul, this has been Pixels Popcorn. Thanks for watching.